The Millennial Arab. First, let's look at some statistics. 1.9 million Americans are of Arab descent. (23% of Muslim millennials use a non-Muslim sounding first name. 28% of Arab millennials have faced outward discrimination or biases from administration and/or management. There has been a 660% uptick in Arab millennials seeking help with bullying, depression, or other issues.
Being aware that I'm walking around and people recognize me as either Arab or Muslim, that I was like, oh, okay, this is just something that I have to deal with for the rest of my life.
People get to know you, and like I said, they don't automatically think you're Arab or Palestinian, and then they find out you're Palestinian, and then it's like, oh, well, it just gets awkward. I don't know what it is.
If I'm not being mistaken for, being Mexican or Cuban, I'm always having to explain, where I'm originally from. Even though I was born and raised in Southfield, Michigan, I have to say my family's Lebanese, even though I only have a U.S. passport.
In class, if we're talking about Arabs or if we're talking about Muslims in history or politics or whatever, you kind of like feel this like tension in the air, and all the eyes start to turn at you, like waiting for you to say something.
I will ask students, I'll do an exercise with them. So if I say 3 words like Arab, woman, Muslim, like what are the first things that come to your mind? And they'll say things like oppressed, backward, veil.
Everything about my identity is inherently politicized. Being a woman, being Arab, and being Muslim, like those are 3 very complex identities.
One time we were at the airport, my dad, he has a very Arab sounding name, and in addition to that, he's way darker than I am. So instantly, people were a bit more on alert, and it was kind of especially interesting because, we're both Arab, we're both from Syria, he's literally my dad, the same family, but just like that instant, they felt threatened by him, even though me and him are practically the same person.
A driver. It's like 4 or 5 months ago, like when I was talking about that I came here and I love writing, and as an Arab, you're not in the right place. That's what I understand from the way he was talking to me. If I'm an Arab, I don't have the right to say my what I think about.
In 1987, I was 4 at the time, and federal agents came into my house and arrested my uncle. That was like the first moment where I knew that being Palestinian specifically, and Arab probably more, I guess broadly speaking, meant something different.
On the one hand, I'm Arab and Muslim, and on the other hand, I'm also American. So sometimes balancing those 2 sides gets difficult, and I think you reach a point in your life where you find that balance and you become proud of that balance.
I remember this happened to me actually a couple weeks ago. I was in Westwood and we were driving. We needed to park somewhere, and we asked this one lady who was stopped. She had her car lights on, like she was gonna reverse out essentially. And while she was reversing, like she let us take her spot, and then she drove up right next to us and she looked at us and she was like, "By the way, I just want to say, I am so sorry for Trump. Like, I'm so sorry." But I was like, "Aw, that's cute. Like, that doesn't really happen often. Arabs and Muslims, we don't hate all white people just because y'all have Trump." Like,
people go to the media because they feel like, or they kind of absorb what the media has to say because they don't always have a peer from that background to talk with. And it's just kind of like, have an open mind, listen, don't listen to change someone else's point of view.
People are told to be expressive and be themselves, and at the same time they're being persecuted for that, in the sense that being yourself should be normal. And I think that's what we should strive for.
To tie the video testimonials into text, we'll be looking at A Border Passage by Leila Ahmed. In one of her various quotes, she says, "These years following my return from Egypt were to be, for me, quite crucial. They marked the end, in important ways, of enormously privileged life I had had until then taken for granted. They changed me forever. At once, turning point and crucible, they fundamentally shaped my life and my work and who I became. Looking deeper into this, we all know that growing up doesn't really just happen all at once. For people who suffer trauma early on, there are usually a series of moments in each person's life that marks the end of childhood and the beginning of the rest of it. And for many millennial Arab individuals, that happens really early on growing up in the United States. From the various testimonials we heard in the previous videos and the ones to come, it's a continuation of privilege being taken, the members of their family being stripped away, and just being vindicated by the government because they are that, just that, Arab. When referring to post 9/11, many people think of anyone who helped during the cleanup for the Twin Towers, but no one ever refers to the stories of the millennials who are silenced because a whole race was demonized by three people's wrongdoing. In the next video, you will see the stories of American millennial youth who grew up after 9/11, after the aftermath of being someone who was demonized by something someone else did. This continues to happen to marginalized groups because they're easy to put the blame on.
When there is a shooter who shoots up a movie theater and he happens to be white, does the president go on TV and say, look, white people, you have to, speak up against, you have to root out the crazy people in your communities who are going to go and shoot up schools? That doesn't happen.
We grew up in a post 9/11 world. It's the only thing we know. We only know about Islam being viewed as hate, whereas we grew up in a household where Islam is love, it's peace, it's, helping one another, compassion.
And in the military, you have rules of engagement that really go along with Islamic rules of engagement. So how can you say American values are not in line with Islamic values? Just like the rules of engagement in Islam, you can't hurt an unarmed person.
Before any investigation goes on after a shooting or any kind of attack, if the name sounds Muslim, it's a suspected terrorist attack. Every single time. And so every Muslim in America is on the edge of their seats like, what's the name? What's the name? Has the name been released? Not because of the attack being carried out and how horrendous it was, but because everybody's scared of the backlash. Yeah. So we have to both mourn innocent victims along with everybody else, but we also have to worry about what's going to happen to us afterwards.
People believe that Muslims are not American, or we don't have this sort of American identity or these American values. I don't like to identify myself as a Muslim American. I'm an American who is Muslim. People don't identify themselves as Christian Americans or Jewish Americans. They're Americans. The same way that I'm a second-generation American. My father was born in the Navajo Reservation in New Mexico. My mother was born in New Mexico. I mean, I'm as American as it gets. So why is there this divide that Donald Trump wants to create, and those people that support him want to create, when I'm just as American as them?
Over the course of the semester, we've gone over texts like A Border Passage by Leila Ahmed, Guapa by Salim Haddad, and Arabian Jazz by Diane Abu Jabbar. And all of these texts come down to one simple theme that I've come up with, and that is testimonials. Not only is a testimonial something that is a story of someone living, but the story of someone that one of these authors created that embodies the living individual of an Arabian person who has either grown up in the United States or grew up elsewhere and has seen the effects that the United States has had on their childhood, their adult life, and so on. the continued silencing of these individuals is something that is heartbreaking yet understandable in the world that we live in, because of the fact that marginalized individuals are not giving the microphone to speak up for themselves, and also not given a microphone to show exactly what their culture is. And I think throughout the 2 sets of testimonial videos that are inputted into this short mini documentary, they could never do the justice that Arab testimonials deserve, because of the fact that the limited resources to hearing the voices of Arab individuals has not been taken on as it should be, which is something I might look into doing later on. But finding a way to not only grasp the effectiveness of literature, but also the effectiveness of personal stories is something that I think, in conclusion of this whole mini doc, that people should take away. Take away that you should see the keys in people's stories, the keys in people's knowledge, and the keys to success if you use all 3 of those things. Thank you.